Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for investing your time with us on a Saturday evening. My name is Shamita Kotegoda, and I will be your moderator. Today, we have an amazing panel where we'll be talking about the professional development project focusing on personal finance management, investment, and microfinancing. Our goal today is that you will come away with something, maybe a new idea, maybe a fresh perspective, a new strategy that you can apply to be more focused on personal finance management. So let me take a few moments to give a brief introduction about our speakers. First, we have Mr. Chaminda Kumarasiri. He is the founder and chairman of HCP Consulting. He is a senior management consultant and an international speaker and a multi-qualified financial professional and a strategic advisor. Chaminda is also a board member of several leading public and private institutions. Next up is Nilendra Vitanage. He is a chartered accountant and a senior banker with 14 years of experience in project landing, relationship management, developing finance, and risk management. He is also a renowned economist, consultant strategist, and a very popular lecturer. Finally, we come on to the Usman Anas is a financial professional with a passionate approach to redefining conventional financial norms, which is very interesting. He's a ACMA, CGMA chartered management accountant. He's also served as an auditor at KPMG and a finance manager at Providence Auto Limited. He is currently the CFO of Icon. So I'll kick off the conversation asking questions that draw out some high-level themes and trends we should be thinking about. And we will wrap things up with a small online questionnaire under about 3-4 minutes. Right, sounds good. Let's move on and start up with our first section, personal finance management. Right, the first question is for you, Mr. Chaminda Kumarasiri. The first question is, why is personal budgeting important?
Well, first of all, thank you for the Rotaract Club for inviting me for this. Let me start like this. When we talk about personal budgeting, we discuss about budgeting these days in big time because the government has spelled out their budget for the country. But the advantage of the government is that when you talk about expenditure, they can print money if there's a shortage. But we cannot do that as individuals. You can do, but you will end up in jail. So the problem is we need to now figure out how to manage what you get. So budgeting is somewhat of a tool that we use in the corporate world, but not that familiar in the personal financial management perspective. But let me give you a few tips for whoever is here as to why budgeting is important in your personal financial management. In simple terms, what a budget is a plan about your future. So you talk about the future of your financial landscape. If I may give a little more precise answer with few points as to why budgeting can help you in your personal financials. The number one, I would say, it helps you to control your spending. So when you operate your finances without a budget, you don't really have anything holding you back from spending beyond your means. So you might have a general idea about how much money you can spend at each month when you know your salary or whatever. But without a precise number, precise detail, you wouldn't know how much you can actually spend. That's why most of the time people end up spending their whole salary before the month end, because you don't have an exact tap of it. So that number one is you can keep a tap of your spend. Then the second item would be everyone has financial goals, right? So setting goals is not a difficult task. So you just have to set what you want and you have to put a timeline. It's simple as that. But here's the point. Setting goals won't solve the problem unless you have a discipline to manage your finances as you move. So I'm sure these days, most of us are getting ready for your new year. And one of the new year resolutions of many of us would be to manage your finances and having your financial goals intact. But at the same time, it's very important when you have a goal, how you achieve there. So when you have a budget which explains you with timing what you're going to do in what stage, will tell you whether you are on track or not in achieving your goal. So therefore, it's important in your personal finance. Here's an interesting point. Budgeting can also help your marriage. So those who are married here would know that money matters are one of the biggest battles at home front, because two parties will have two different viewpoints of money and spending. So when you have a budget for the family, it will help both of you to have a track of what you're going to do and where you are going to spend. And that will at least reduce your battle on your financial matters. So you still have space for other battles. That's something that you have to manage separately. And then we talk about financial contentment. Here's an interesting thing. What do you mean by contentment? That's basically you become happy with what you have. So when you start spending money that you don't have, you end up being distressed, disappointed. But when you have a plan, it tells you how much money you have with you, so that whenever you are tempted for anything, you know where to draw the line. But this is mostly the case with, I must not be very sarcastic or discriminative here, but I'll get you a basic example. Most of our female community, when they go on shopping, probably you go on shopping to buy a sari, but you end up coming home with 4 handbags, 2 pair of glasses, and 1 pair of shoes, and without a sari. Because that happens. Because you forget what you actually go for. So when you have a plan, you know where you are going to spend exactly. And here is another tip I must give you as I discuss that part. When you go on shopping, have a budget in your mind. If you want to buy a handbag, you have a budget, let's say 4,000, 5,000. Have a little extra in your pocket. Don't take anything extra, so that you know there's money adequate for what you want to buy. Then it also helps you to prepare for emergencies. Now, these days, most of us are facing this with COVID-19 pandemic, right? So some people are worried about not being able to save something for a rainy day. So when you have a budget, a natural part of a budget, may it be a corporate budget, may it be a personal budget, is that you deliberately keep some money aside with your earnings as part of your budgetary process. That will give you some leeway to manage your difficult time. So I would say, on a personal note, any one of us should have at least 3 to 6 months at least, right, savings to manage your living expenses, so that in case you lose your job, at least you have some leeway until you find a job. So that's the case with the pandemic as well. So I can keep on telling you a lot of ideas, but in the interest of time, I think those things will give you some idea why you should keep a budget, because it gives you a clear picture as to how you move with your finances.
Thank you, sir. Very interesting, very informative, good advice, actually. I could even take some myself. So we'll move on to the next question. Financial discipline. What is it? How to practice it? Nilendra, will you be able to enlighten us?
Shamita, thank you very much. And one apologies for me, because in our area there is a power cut. So actually everything is dark. So I may not be able to switch on my camera. Is it okay?
That is perfectly all right.
All right. So fine. So I will talk about a bit on this thing. What is the financial discipline? Shamita, it's like this. Now, if you take the word discipline itself. So we heard this from our very old days when we were at school, right? We heard about this. We identified that there are a lot of things which involved with discipline, right? Our parents asked us to behave in such a way, right? Then it comes to our, let's say, food intake. Though these days we hear, right, we have to eat in a disciplined manner, otherwise you get fat, right? Otherwise you will have all this cholesterol, everything. If you lose discipline, there will be some issues that will happen to you. Same thing, the same theory, the same principle you have to apply into your finance as well, right? So as Chaminda mentioned, if you run with a very limited financial resources, if you run with very limited financial resources, there should be some kind of, let's say, a framework within which you have to spend. There is some kind of a framework within which you have to spend. I will take an example. It's like this. Now, you would have seen people taking, let's say, personal loans, credit cards, right? And financial institutions are also lavishly giving all these products to them.
Yes.
Right? If a young graduate comes out, I think our audience is, most of them are young graduates, undergrads. The banks and the financial institutions may come after you because they know that you are in very near period of time, you become, right, a salaried employee somewhere, or you may draw a hefty salary. So they come after you and offer you all these financial products, which sometimes the pundits in financial field will say bad debts, bad credits, right? Which will put you in trouble if you don't use them properly, right? Financial discipline, Shamita, is something where you know your framework, you know your parameters, you know your boundary, and then you spend. Part of the discipline is that, right? So it includes several very important aspects. Number one is, first thing, you write down, you document all your income and all your expenditure. And at any given point of time, you know how much of cash balance you have, right? If I ask a very silly question right now, how much amount of money you have in your wallet right now, right, to the nearest 100 rupees, I know about 50 to 60% of us don't know that, right? That doesn't mean that we are so super rich. That means that we don't have any recording of our cash in and cash out. So first important point which comes in financial discipline is accounting, is record keeping of your finance. That's number one, which comes in financial discipline. The second one is avoiding bad credit. Avoiding bad, in one terms, you can call it bad debts. If it takes in accounting bad debts, it's something else, the definition is, but I would call it bad credit. Like, let's say, having a personal loan to have your extravagant wedding, right? So after the wedding, for 5 years time, you have to pay that personal loan. Credit cards. Now these days, the seasonal offers are there, 25%, 30% discounts are there. So you go to all these shopping malls and just, right, lavishly you spend. But that doesn't mean financial discipline. So financial discipline means you need to have that particular bad credit set aside so that you can spend on for your essential items. Very important. Now, sometimes we are living in a world where we compare ourselves with others, right? So if the person next door to you, Mr. Pereira, has brought down a brand new BMW, sometimes your spouse may also say, darling, why don't we go for a Mercedes? That can happen. It's a comparative world we are living in. So what we have to do, forget about them. We have to spend very carefully. Avoid bad credit. Very important. Number one, I told you, that is, you need to record keep all your cash coming in and cash coming out, going out. Then financial record keeping. Extremely important for all young professionals who are listening here. Then very important, all of you, financial discipline. Another part is diversifying your income. Very important. Diversifying our income. in a situation like this, right, where for the previous 1 year time, what we are experiencing, right, incomes are going down, our expenditure is going up, right, we feel a lot of pressure, sometimes jobs being lost, right, if you are lawyers, sometimes your private practice income may going down, right, issues can happen. So at that time, you should have, if you have diversified your income, if your income is coming from 2-3 sources, if your professional income is dried up, you don't have to worry, because there is some other passive income which is coming to you. Maybe an income from a coconut land, right? See the prices of coconut these days. See the prices of, let's say, vegetables these days. So if you have diversified into that area, even though you have lost your income from one source, still you are surviving, because your other sources of income is giving you means of living. Diversifying your income is also extremely important for you to have financial discipline. The next one is savings. Shamita and all our audience, it's extremely important you save, right? Now, we all save, right? I know we all save, but there is a concept of saving. We save sometimes, most of the time, after we spend, right? After we spend only, we save. So whatever we get the income, we spend, and whatever the amount we have, then thereafter we save that in a savings account. But what should happen is, actually you should have the discipline to save approximately 20 to 30% of your income, as Chaminda mentioned, for a rainy day, from the very first time when you get your income. So you set aside your savings, then only you have to spend. Very important. So I wanted to touch those 4 points with regard to the financial discipline. It is where you know your boundaries, you know your limitations in spending, you spend according to a framework, right? So no lavish spending. Then very important that you record keep, account all your income and expenditure. Then very important that the next step, you diversify your income. Then savings are also important. Avoid bad credit. All these are very important in financial discipline. So as a professional, right, I know our audience, most of them are young professionals, maybe eager to becoming young professionals. So that particular quality will take you to the next level in your professional career, professional journey, because that's how you are developed.
Okay, Nilendra, thank you very much for that advice. It's really good learning. So we'll move on to the final question on this personal finance management. It's directed towards Usman. How to plan a personal budget?
Thank you, Mr. Shamita. Thank you for the Rotaract Club for having me here today. Touching upon the factors that Mr. Chaminda mentioned and Mr. Nilendra mentioned, it's always important as a personal to have your budget sorted out and to know what you are spending at a future period of time. So, like they say, the best financial managers are your parents. They come from your own home. You yourself need to know how to manage your finances in an appropriate manner where it will be efficient and effective towards what you have. So, when talking about building a personal finance budget, the key steps, it could be divided mainly into a few key steps. The initial point being, before anything, you need to know how much you have in your hand. You need to know how much you earn. So, for a beginning, you start and understand your net earnings, and from there, you try to analyze what's below that. So, from your net earnings, you have to then deduct uh, all the routine, or all the recurring expenses. So these recurring expenses can also be divided into two, such as expenses which are your needs and those are which are your wants. Now, like Mr. Chamendra said, uh, people, ladies who go on shopping have a particular set of offset of how they manage. Now, it is important for them to understand what their needs are and what their wants are and focus on the needs first. So from your net income, you identify your needs, identify the spending that you need for those needs, and then you have your bottom line, which would determine the amount of cash that you have for other stuff. So out of that bottom line, like Mr. Nilendra said, it is important for you to allocate somewhere around 20% for your savings, because uh, it is a well-known theory where people tend to tend to live of what they earn, whereas in the future, in about 5-6 years, there will be no savings to them. And at a time like this, where what we are currently experiencing, we will have to face, it's pretty hard at those times once you don't have a saving. So after identifying the savings, then you can look at your other expenses, which are your wants. So you can identify your entertainment expenses, your expenses on other stuff, your capital expenses. So after analyzing all of that, now you specifically know where you should stand in 1 month's time or a particular period of time once you set this budget up. So from this point onwards, it is your duty to make sure that you continuously monitor this. Uh, you continuously monitor this process and identify whether uh, you are where you are supposed to be and where you plan to be after a specific period of time. So if you set your budget for 1 month, it is important that you make a check every week or even maybe daily, but given the uh, practical aspects, we can say 1 week. So have 1 week, check whether you are where you wanted to be, and from there onwards you can focus on your other, you can focus on your other expenses. You can maybe increase your savings percentage, you can maybe increase your percentage for entertainment if you have more money, but it should all happen after you focus on your net income and your needs. So it is very important for us to look at these things uh, at a very young age, so that it becomes a habit someday, and when time goes on, it will be what helps us be what our parents are and what proper future leaders are.
Hi, excellent. Thank you so much for that. I learned a lot myself by listening to your advice. So that concludes personal finance management. Now we can move on to the investment segment. The first question is towards Mr. Chamendra Kumarasiri. Very interesting question this is during this pandemic. Why you should invest and investing in the current economy in relation to the impact of COVID-19? Over to you, sir.
Right. Thank you, Shama. Now, here again, we have a problem now. People think for you to invest, you need extra money, right? So we think we earn for spending and you need extra money for investment. So that is the myth that we need to get out of first. So first we need to distinguish between spending and investing. Spending is something that you do with your money that will never come back to you, right? If you buy an ice cream, you eat it, that's it. So investment is something that you do with your money, which will come back to you in some form. So if you put your money in a fixed deposit, yes, the money is going out of your pocket, but it will come back with something more. So in simple terms, investing is a tool you use to grow your money. So here is the important point that we need to understand, especially I can see a lot of young legal professionals, I believe, are here today. So most of us, after we complete our education, maybe while in the education, we earn something. Now, look at where you spend your money. So Nilendra was giving you a very good formula, right, for saving. Once you earn something, you keep something aside and then talk about spending money. But the saving is not just about keeping money aside. We need to keep that in mind, because when you earn 100 and keep 20 aside and leave it there, it won't grow on its own. So there is an opportunity cost there. So I'll give you a number. Some of you may be surprised to hear this number. In Sri Lanka, we have over 60 billion rupees lying under the pillow, in pockets, or some corner in your drawers or somewhere at home. Because this is the money that people just keep without doing anything, right? So it's a big amount of money. Imagine that this money coming into the system and grow. So therefore, investment is something that we have to start practicing right from the beginning of our journey when we start earning. Now, the challenge here is that we at our age, we are trying to match our life with somebody else's lifestyle. So we, as Nilendra also mentioned earlier, we look at our neighbors, we look at our peers, we look at our enemies and see how we can beat them with our lifestyle. But one thing we need to understand is that lifestyle is costly. So during this pandemic, I happened to engage in many programs, and all these programs, one most important thing I have highlighted was living is not expensive. It is the lifestyle that's cost you more. I'll give you an example. When you want to buy a shirt, you can buy a 5,000 worth of a shirt by going for the brand, or you can buy a shirt for 1,500. So the difference is the brand, right? So do you want to pay for the brand, or do you want to consume the good? And most of the youngsters have this mindset. The moment you come out of your student mindset to your society or circle or whatever, look at your spending. You go for an iPhone, right? 150,000, 60,000 just for a mobile phone. So imagine you invest 100,000 out of it and buy a mobile phone for 50,000. That 100,000 can be an investment which will grow. So here comes the surprising part. Most of us don't realize that we don't have a pension, right? If you are in the government sector, you have a pension. So that is one of the biggest reliefs that most of the people say. Even today, when I go to my hometown, most of my elderly people ask, are you working? I say, I don't have a job. Oh my God, you don't have a job, right? Why don't you get into a government job? Because you have pension. Because they see the security, financial security when you are old, because nobody will hire you at that age. So how many of us actually think of building a fund for retirement? How many of us actually thinking of at least investing in a life insurance that will give you something at your retirement? When you don't have the capability of earning, you need to have something. So the second point is that when you look at investment, you need to look at it in another way. Money by itself is nothing, right? We talk about financial freedom. Again, most of the people who come to me, so I do a lot of consulting and counseling for financial matters for companies as well as individuals. A lot of the people who come to me are distressed with financials. Let me explain you where the distress comes. There is a psychological element also in it, right? We have a psychological portfolio within our head. So we are trying to match our material wealth with the psychological portfolio. In simple terms, I'll explain you in simple terms. We have beliefs in money. We believe what money can do, right? There are things that money can do. There are things money cannot do. If you believe having a vehicle is a symbol of prosperity, it's a symbol of richness, it's a symbol of superiority, all your money will be spent on material things. You buy a luxury car, you buy a luxury house, you wear luxury suit, branded suit. You think that is a way of showcasing your wealth or your personality. And those who believe that your personality is nothing but your character, those guys will not put their money on unnecessary brands. And they will put that money aside for a rainy day. And that's what you need to figure out. First, you need to figure out what money is all about. And then you need to match your investment or expenditure. So it's a switching between whether you want to spend money and forget it, or whether you want to invest money and grow it. In simple terms, investing is all about putting your money at work, right? You can earn 100,000 every month and spend 100,000 every month. Or you can earn 100,000 every month and invest 40,000 out of it. And by the end of the year, you have more than 100,000 into 12 earnings, right? If you look at the interest or whatever you get, earning side, then you deduct expenditure, you have something extra. That's the only way to grow. And finally, I must also highlight, during this pandemic season, most of the people have this issue that we lost the opportunity to earn. We got a salary cut. But what we don't realize is we also have curtailment on our expenditure. Imagine the last couple of months during lockdown period and all that, you didn't go to office, you saved on your transportation. You saved on most of your luxury expenditure you would have otherwise spent with your friends, colleagues, go to the bar, having parties, celebrations, all that was saved. And you don't even have to spend for weddings, right? Or birthday parties. So there are a lot of saving that you have already gained. So if you look at realistically, you haven't lost much. But the problem is this. Now, this pandemic has given you a fantastic opportunity to revisit your financial health and what really matters. And it is a good idea to capitalize on this learning and move forward. Don't get back to your impulsive buying habit, right? You now have to be cautious about where you spend. Think about necessaries over luxuries. Think about the product or service over the brand. Think about growing money rather than losing money, right? And think about lifestyle, not comparative to your neighbor or your friend or enemy. First, define what you want to be, who you are, what your character is, and try to match your spending and your investment according to your character. I told you about the budget. So budget is very important tool that will give you a complete picture about your spending and investment. And that ratio is very important. Another point I would like to highlight, in the interest of time, I can talk a lot about this, but I will give you one more tip for whoever thinks that we don't have any tool these days to invest. The even FD rates, market rates have come down. There's nothing much we can get from putting money in a fixed deposit. Remember that when most of the things are down, the property market is also down. We have a good buying market in the property market, right? Don't think about buying a vehicle, buying a luxury mobile phone. Just try to buy a little piece of land, right? At least you can borrow money from a bank and buy a land at this stage and pay some, installment. Still, it's worth, because land is something that will never dilute, right? But the sad story is that most of the organizations have now come into these crises, and as a result, they cut their spending. They cut their prices at the same time. So if you go to, now a lot of the people are talking about the hotels, right? Half rates, right? Most of the luxury items are going at half rates. But remember, even if it is half rate, you have to still spend that 50%. If that is an unnecessary expenditure, you are paying 50% for an unnecessary expenditure. So you are adding something more to your expenditure bucket. So why don't you save that? Right? Invest that and grow it. That's the message I want to give you. Think twice before you spend, whether you want to spend and forget, or whether you want to put that money to a place that will grow money by itself. That is investment.
Thank you, sir. That's really good advice. Something I will also take on board myself. So the next question goes on to Nilendra, which relates to the topic we were speaking about before. Let's talk about reliable modes of investing. Basically, FD rates, other good investment plans, and investing in the share market. Nilendra?
Right. Good. Shamita, it's like this. Now, taking from where Chaminda has concluded, I'm taking from there. Now, first thing, we all should have a proper retirement plan, right? The best piece of investment that anyone can do, most probably our young professionals, aspiring professionals who are listening to this, who are watching this, first piece of investment that you have to do is invest in your retirement. Extremely important, right? There are ample amount of retirement plans are available, right? Most of the time when an insurance person calls to us, what we do, it's insurance. I may not need an insurance. So just ask from him, hey, apart from whatever the insurance that you're going to sell me, hey, do you have a proper retirement plan? Retirement plan. Ask from him, right? Because now you may be, let's say, 20 years, 22 years, maybe maximum 25 years. But what can happen is, in another, let's say, 20, 30 years time, what will happen to you is you also will retire, right? I don't know. We don't know what will happen to us, right? So invest in a proper retirement plan. Insurance companies, if you go to a bank or if you go to a financial advisor, they may provide you different retirement schemes, right? Coupled with a medical benefit, right? It is very important. If you do private practice, most of our legal professionals do private practice. So a medical benefit, coupled with that, do it, right? Don't chase away your the next insurance person that who will call you, but don't go straight away to that particular policy that he is selling to you. Do a comparison. Ask from several insurance companies, banks, and all. Do a comparison and go for invest in retirement. That's number one. And if I take savings accounts, fixed deposits, right, as investment modes, these days you can invest. That's basically savings, but the rates that you get these days are very very low rates. Very low rates. Fixed deposits, the rates that you normally get these days around 5%. Fixed deposits, and savings accounts 3 to 4%. So that is not an attractive investment these days. That is not an attractive investment these days. You may do it if you are a risk-free person, right? It's based on your attitude, right? It's based on your risk attitude. If you are, let's say, so risk averse, maybe avoiding the risk, you may go with a fixed deposit. But the only problem that we have here right now is that our fixed deposit and savings account interest rates are so very thin. So the next one, retirement plan, then deposits, and the next one is share market, right? Share market. Now, if you take the Sri Lankan Stock Exchange, highly speculative, right? Where what I advise you, don't put a lot of money into it, but to get the feel, right? Open up a security CDS account with a broker and put some amount of money, let's say 50,000, 100,000, and try to get the feel, right? Because nowadays you have the mobile app. You can trade, you can put your own buy order, you can put your own sell order through the mobile app. You yourself can make the orders. Invest in the stock exchange, right? Get the feel. All these billionaires, even in Sri Lanka, didn't become billionaires by working somewhere, right? That's the most important factor. Now, billionaires became billionaires not by doing private practice, not by doing a job, by doing investing. Stock exchange is a place. So I advise all of you to have a small stock portfolio, right? First instance, you may not gain a good profit, right? Now, once you put your money, you don't make profits. Sometimes you may incur a loss. But when you get the feel of the investment, how the market is trading, how the other investors are also working, how all these billionaires are working. So when you get that particular feel, there will be a day that you start earning also, right? So in a small way, limited way, try to invest in stock exchange as well. That's third one. And the fourth one, these days, what you can do, right? The fourth and the last point, very important. These days, the world is digitalized, right? You have all these mobile applications, you have Uber, you have all these digitalized modes of selling your product. What I always encourage the people who are around me, people who are, let's say, who are my students, is start your own business, right? Start your own business. There was, I will not name her, there is one of my friends, right? She was an air hostess, right? She's an air hostess. And about 7-8 years back, or 6 years back, she was the Sri Lanka's, I think, let's say, the most prominent air hostess who was always in the airline advertisements and everything. So what had happened, at her leisure time, she started a very small event management company. She started with birthday parties, setting up birthday parties, because she had all the contacts, right? The photographers, the DJs, the people who supply food. So she had all the contacts. She started that very minute way, smaller manner. So what had happened, gradually she advertised it, and everything has happened so really well to her that ultimately she resigned from her job. Now she is running her own company. Now imagine a situation like this, where airline industry has been fully devastated. If she worked in the airline, she would have lost her job by now. But right now she has her own business. She has her own business venture. So nowadays, Shamita, what people, students now you have is, you have Uber right now, right? So start your own business of, let's say, producing cakes, right? Your own biryani business at home. Have a good brand. Have your own Instagram page, right? You have your own Facebook page. Advertise it. Ask your friends to review it, right? Share your page, right? Make a talk about it. And you can, let's say, pay about 5,000, 6,000 rupees to a, let's say, YouTube channel, and have your own interview, right? And popularize it among your friends. Then people will start talking about you and provide a better service to your customers. Then you yourself, maybe you are a legal professional, but you can run your own business. Invest in your own small business venture. Invest in your small business venture. Very important. This is a time where we all are talking about entrepreneurship, right? We all talk about entrepreneurship. Why we can't become entrepreneurs, the professionals? So very important. Retirement plan. That's extremely important. Then thereafter, very important that you should have your own business running with you, because if you lose your job, your business will save you. Invest in your own business.
Thank you, Nilendra. That's some timely advice. Really ideal for this kind of situation. So the final question on the investments is basically for Usman. What's the best way to start investing for a young professional with little capital? So basically a startup.
Yeah. So, being a young individual myself, um, out of what Mr. Chaminda and Mr. Nilendra had to say, it's understanding first the first step to investment comes by savings. So first you have to make sure that you have digged out the proper plan in which how you're going to save. Ms. Jaminda brought a very good point about value of the goods. So we can start by looking at the core value of the good and what the good does to us, what the product is doing at its core, rather than focusing on its intrinsic value. So many of us ourselves, especially in this generation, move towards brands and look for its intrinsic value rather than focusing on the core value of the product. It is not wrong. However, you are able to save a hefty load of money if you focus more on on the core value and invest less on the extrinsic value of the product. So first we start by saving. Once we make the saving, for a young individual like us, it is better off that we look into investing this money into risk-free markets. So, like Mr. Nilendra spoke a while ago, uh, savings accounts, FDs, now these at this point of time may not have big returns, but given the state of affairs around the world, it is better to have the money invested somewhere rather than have it in your pocket and not earn anything. Like Mr. Chaminda said, 20% of all income, all savings, household savings lie in our pockets rather than turning into household investments. Now, the loss we are making out of that is unbearable. So, the how, if we actually focus on how much of an economic impact it would have had if we had invested that money and produced something that would have held our GDP, that 20% investment would have been a massive value. Though we see it as small value in our pockets, when it's combined together, that's a massive value. So then we focus on these risk-free investments. Why I would say risk-free investments is because being a young individual, it's pretty hard to take a loss at the first time. So when you invest in something and you get a loss, it might provoke you to not make any investment in the future. That fear is not needed. However, that is a natural fear, because if the first thing you do goes wrong, you always fear, which is natural. But then again, once you have had the pick, once you get the taste of investment and the return, now you can focus on risk investments. Now, like Mr. Lilendra pointed out, share market is a very easy place now to invest. It doesn't take too much procedures. It's not a matter of going to a place and doing all of it. Now it's within a click. It's easy as that. So it's not hard to invest in a share market, and there is no minimum value that you need to put into a share market. So in a share market, for you to invest, the minimum value is one share. There are shares which are 10 cents as well. So you can buy by investing 10 share for 10 cents. So it's not that you have to invest just because it's 10 cents. No, you are not going to get much of a return just because you see a share at low value and you go and invest on it. But when you start investing even the little money that you have on these small things, it gives you that feel that when you start making returns, that you want to invest more, and you try to understand what the share market is. You try to get the pick of how the share market works, what S&P 20 is. S&P 20 basically states the highest 20 companies, highest market capitalization companies in Sri Lanka. So once you get the idea of all of that, you have much of a better understanding of what you have to do. So it's a simple matter of opening a CDS account by talking to a stockbroker. You just have to be 18 years old. You have to fill a CDS form, and once you submit it, you can literally buy and sell shares. So it's you have to always keep in mind, brokers might tell you that you have to put this amount of money. There are certain broker companies which has a minimum stake, but many of the broker companies don't, whereas you can invest whatever amount you want, and brokers always push you to invest more, but you don't have to be shy. It's your money. You can invest at any amount you want. So once you get the return out of these investments, now that you get the feel of it, now you have made money with your capital, and your capital is still remaining. Now you can spend whatever you earn from the capital. And the last point that I want to mention was something Mr. Nilendra pointed out. It's that we have to invest in ourselves. Now, at a situation like this, something that we don't realize much is that though there are business types, business opportunities that are slipping away, along with that, there are business opportunities that are coming our way. Now, I'll give you a good example. This application that we're using now called Zoom made its highest return at the time of this pandemic. It's a simple example. So if we can open up, if we can open our heads and look into being creative, look into finding the opportunities out of this situation, it's gonna help us become a individual, a successful individual, make the successful individual make a successful company, and that make successful company may become the brand name of the successful country. So it is in our hands, the youth, to make sure that we make these right investment decisions and make a sustainable Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Usman. That was brilliant. Right. So we are moving into the final segment of our discussion. It's a microfinancing. And the question will be for Nilendra. What should be the areas of focus for a startup business, Nilendra?
Shamita, it's like this. Now, I will take one important area, which two important areas actually. One is, as a banker, I am a person who has traveled around Sri Lanka, right? I have traveled to many places, and I have seen different startups coming around, right? Where we have lent, we have provided a lot of loans for microfinancing and startups and everything. What I have seen out of all those, right? For a startup here in our country, the best thing that is doing well as a generic terms is cultivations, right? If you do cultivation really well, let's say vegetables, or maybe let's say fruits, if you identify the proper season, the time where the prices go up, right, you will be a millionaire overnight, right? There are individuals in Abilipiti area, there are individuals in Monragala, Buttal area, right, who are cultivators of, I would say, let's say what, green gram, cultivators of, let's say paddy, cultivators of, let's say, banana, right? With one season, they earn some 10-15 million rupees, right? One season, 10-15 million rupees. But what happens most of the time in Sri Lanka is where people, our farmers, maybe people who are entering into cultivation, what they do is they don't identify the proper season. You know, the kanne, right? The kanne thing, Yala Maha and all this, they don't understand that properly. If I give you a small example with regard to the cultivations, you know, this green chili. On one particular, let's say, if it is off season, the prices of green chili goes skyrocket, right? But when the harvesting is going on, right, the prices of green chili falls into the rock bottom. Same for papaya, same for, let's say, any other vegetable or fruit here in our country. Most of our startups, most of our people who are coming into cultivation falls into that trap, right? They don't understand the proper season. So what happens, the smart startups, people who are smart in identifying the opportunity, they identify this price differential, and they they dispose their cultivation, their product into the market at the right time where they get the maximum value. So there are some individuals I know who did degrees in the universities, but now into farming and earn in millions, right? That's very important thing that I want to touch, because as a country, if you want to develop, we are an agri-based economy. Here in Sri Lanka, if you do something agri-based, there is a good chance of you winning. Spices, right? And let's say spices are really doing well here in our country. Then vegetables, identify the seasons, identify where the off season is, do some cultivation, it will earn you well. Then another one, what I wanted to stress, important investments in important startups which you can do. People now, you have this digital technology everywhere with you, right? One time, very recently, I was happened to meet a gigantic television tycoon here in Sri Lanka, right? Owner of several media channels. I think his media channels are the number 1, 2 in the country's rankings, right? At that time, he told me, it's like this, I am expecting profits from my television only for next 4 years. Thereafter, he said, then I asked, thereafter, how do you make some income? He said, then thereafter, by that time, I will change all my television, everything into mobile platforms. YouTube channel, right? This Instagram, everything. So very important. Now you have, all of our professionals are well versatile with their mobile devices. You have a camera with you in your mobile device. Use it. You can do wonders. Start your own YouTube channel, right? Businesses are immense, right? There are ample amount of businesses available to you. Develop greeting cards, right? Handmade greeting cards, you don't know at what price they are sold, right? Greeting card. I am opening up the avenue, right? I am opening up just the paradigm for you. You can think and you can start on your own startup. One is greeting cards. Maybe sometimes you can start your own consultancy through a mobile app, right? On consultancy, any lawyer in Sri Lanka, have you thought of doing your consultancy through a mobile app? Think, right? Because people are addicted to mobile now, right? Provide advice to the app through an app. What you can do, these are the early bird will make the money. Early bird will make the money. So mobile device, the digitalization. Now you have all these platforms available. People can work remotely. You don't have to have these flashy offices right now. No overhead needed. From your home, from your house, you can do 1 million rupee business. Those are the things that are available for you, right? You can start your own, let's say, car wash. It's a mobile thing. You don't need to have let's say, washing bay. You can have your mobile car wash item equipment fixed to your, let's say, pickup truck, take to place, get orders from your mobile app, place to place, because people are now don't go to let's say a shed or a washing bay to do it because of this risk. You can go delivery, you can go to the place of their place, and you can do it. So for that, you can charge a premium price. That's how you have to think, my friends. That's how you have to think. Innovative ways will make you the early mover, will gain you the super profits. That's how you have to think. Now, the point I have mentioned you, I have not come across yet any lawyer, any legal professional still going into mobile technology, mobile device, providing advice, right? Let's say canvassing clients through this, not canvassing client, but I think it's not ethical for you, but providing service through mobile device. So you can make this startup. You can do it. So think in that way. I'm opening up your the paradigm. You can think and you can do, because handheld device, the mobile, your camera can make you a millionaire and ultimately a billionaire, right? I don't want to talk about Blockandino. I don't want to talk about any other, let's say, a YouTube personality, a YouTuber who are making good money. That's all available to you, right? All available to you. So this is how you can do. Thanks, Shamita.
Thank you, Nilendra. That's some brilliant ideas. A nice, innovative thinking process. So my next question is for Mr. Chamindra Kumarasiri. What is the role of state and private sector in supporting a startup business? Because I know the information is very lacking online. The government sector also doesn't provide enough information. So this will be essential for anyone, I believe, who's going to embark on a startup.
Yes. Before I answer that question, let me touch upon a little bit of what Nilendra said, just to give you the perspective. Now, we know in Sri Lanka, our population is around 22 million. But I'm not sure how many of us are aware that we have 32 million mobile connections, right? Our penetration is 150%. So which means it's a huge platform that we have heavily underutilized. And to add to what he said about these online platforms used for consulting, and I have been practicing it, right? Every other day I have an online consultation for entrepreneurs. Even yesterday I was having a consultation for a lady who started a small business somewhere in Hambantota district. I consulted her through these freely available platforms. So these are the things that we need to use, as you sometimes underestimate. We use TikTok and this and that and all this entertainment, but at the same time, we can leverage on this to make money as well. Right. Let me come back to your question about the government and the rest of the players, right? How should they play the game? So I must say, now, if you look at even the Sri Lankan context, we talk about SMEs, we talk about startups, but from the broader perspective, there is a big vacuum. And if anyone is interested, even I wrote an article last week to Daily FT, enabling SME ecosystem, the role of the government. There I have highlighted 10 points that the government has not paid attention, but should be paying attention for. So in that, a few areas where we need to have a national SME policy, and we don't have a database to identify the SMEs or startups, and we don't have a dedicated R&D facility or any sort of protection to their side. So there are a few other areas I have listed down. If anyone is interested, please go through the article and get that detail. It's a full page article. So let me highlight the fact that when you talk about startups, there has to be an ecosystem, because they are the people who come up with an idea probably, but they don't know how to go from that point onwards. I find many startups like that who sometimes come with an idea. Some comes even without an idea. They want to start a business, but don't know how to get that idea.
Great.
Right. So I have published so many videos and articles. If anyone is interested, those are available in social media. How to get an idea, how to convert your idea into a business, how to develop a business idea into a sustainable business model. All that, it takes a lot of time to explain, but I just gave you a high level idea. But the point here is that we need to develop an ecosystem for these people to make that idea a reality. So for that, we need organization who will support in fine-tuning this idea into a business model. We talk about these incubators kind of places, right? And then we need a system to do research and development, because I might have a bright idea, but I need to test that idea and see whether that really works. But the startup guys have no capital to do all this. So there has to be someone, probably the government, facilitating those infrastructure for someone to come and test that idea and see whether it really works, and give them some time to test. What happens most of the time is that people start businesses from their own money, and halfway they can't scale up. Now, you won't believe that I have list of people. I'll just give you one example. I have one gentleman from Polonnaruwa who has innovated 16 plus different ideas, and out of which he has 8 patents, but none of his products are in the commercial production because he doesn't have the seed capital to expand this. Now, this is the type of problem that we have. Look at the number of innovation programs and ceremonies we have in this country, in TV or otherwise, and how many of them really get into the market, because we don't have that system, ecosystem and support system. So let me give you few areas. I think there's an area that the people today in this forum can also think about in the list. When I explain, I'll tell you. One is the regulatory support, because the startup business, when you start a business, you need adequate regulatory support and protection. Some people have no idea about their exposures and legal systems, and sometimes people get into unnecessary litigation issues without knowing those things. And give you a few examples. Our Chopin Office Act is having a lot of areas that are not really conducive for a startup or a SME. So it could be an assignment for one of you guys, and see what are the changes that you can make in this Chopin Office Act, and maybe introduce a different act that will suit these SMEs and startup. Another area is the intellectual property rights, because this is one of the areas that these SMEs or startups are heavily abused. When they come up with a bright idea, sometimes a guy will come and help, but they steal that idea. They go and start the business, right? And then this poor guy who came up with the idea has no protection, and they have no idea about these intellectual property rights, etc. So we need to have a system to get this protection for them in an easy to understand, easy to follow process. And they don't have the capacity and money to afford a legal counsel for those things. Right? There has to be a system. And we also need a tax system that is conducive for SMEs and startup, because this I have already submitted to the government and various organizations I am working with. I'm into various forums and committees, and we have raised these matters, but hopefully these things will get addressed. One of the areas why people don't even keep accounts is because they don't want to get trapped in the tax system. So if you have a tax system that is easy to absorb or digest by these small timers, my proposal to the government was, why don't you have a 3-year tax holiday for any startup, right? Let them start the business and run it for 3 years. Don't touch them, but bring them into the system, support them. After 3 years, when they are strong on their own foot, they will pay a sizable amount to the government. But if you start, penalizing them, if you start catching them right from the beginning, that is a deterrent for them to come to the system. And then we need to create platforms. This is an area that we all can think of. We lack platforms. Now, we saw that heavily during the pandemic period, how poor is our distribution networks, right? When people are locked up, we didn't have enough capacity to distribute goods to the doorsteps. And that also paved a new way of business. Those who capitalize on this business are the winners. So these are new avenues. And also, another area that startups are lacking is the investment, right? So when they have an idea, they need money. But loans is not the solution for everything. Because when you go for a loan, they ask for a collateral or security. And even for the banking system, what we suggested was, why don't you introduce a collateral-free lending system for these people so that they can earn something from the business and repay the loan. The moment they come up with an idea, you go and ask, where's your land? Where's your building? Then we will give you the loan. Then most of the startups are discouraged because of that. And there has to be a funding mechanism. We talk about angel funding, venture capital type of mechanism, not lending, somebody who has the financial capacity to go and invest. And that is one of the good ideas that you guys can think about. We talk about not having adequate investment vehicle these days because the interest rates and everything has come down. But investing in a promising startup with your excess finance would be an ideal opportunity. So I have found many such opportunities for people who want to invest, because in recently also, I'll give you one example to understand the context. When I was conducting an entrepreneurship workshop in Kurunagala some time ago, before this pandemic hit, one lady came to me and said that she has started an ice cream business, her own flavors. And the problem she has is she has demand that she cannot meet. The problem is for her to meet that demand, she needs to expand the facility. She needs someone to help to expand. Demand is guaranteed, right? But if someone can come and help that lady with an investment, it's a win-win investment because there is a guaranteed return for that. The business is growing. There are enough and more investments like that. So that the other thing is, when you invest in a business, growth is exponential. That is, unlike your salary, right? It grows at a slow pace. After 1 year or several years, you get salary increment. But if you start something good in the context, and if it gets the return, overnight you can be a millionaire, right? Depending on how strong your model is. So that is what we need to facilitate. Another area that is lacking in the startup area is mentoring and guiding. Because these people sometimes have an idea, but they don't know the technical aspects of it. They don't know how to scale up. I'll give you one example. When you go to these outskirts, let's say Anuradhapura or wherever those places, you can see this Helabojun, right? Helabojun is a place where you find elderly ladies come and serve food and go and ask for a fruit juice. That is much, much better than those sophisticated fruit juices we get from these posh places in Colombo, right? But they don't know how to market it. They don't know how to brand it. But you can buy that fruit juice at maybe 60 rupees, 70 rupees, which you can't buy here even by paying 300 rupees. So this is where you need some kind of a guidance. They don't know sometimes how to maintain books. They don't know how to negotiate with a buyer or a bank or someone. So to add to that, I am also a council member of Chartered Accountants Institute of Sri Lanka. We have started a project to support SME. In that, one segment is the mentoring program. We have invited volunteers to join us, especially the chartered accountants, and we invite other professionals as well to develop a team or a pool island-wide, and they will go and do this voluntary service, mentoring service to these SMEs and startups, so that there is someone knowledgeable and capable hand-holding them to scale them up. And you also can do that job from your end as legal professionals. It can grow to a certain extent. Maybe you start with a charitable program, but it also can bring you commercial proposition the way you structure it. Right? There are enough opportunities. So my point here is that think about platforms that are missing in today's context. And technology is a big enabler that we heavily underutilize and undermined. So in terms of supporting, you talk about not only government, there are other players as well, private sector institutions, university system, professionals, and also the established entrepreneurs, big players. Because they also need to give a chance to these small timers. When you have an established business, why don't you give us quota in your business for a small timer? Maybe you can't get the same quality that you get from a sophisticated supplier or an import supplier. But there are certain countries who have these rules. If you want to set up a certain type of businesses, they have a rule to say that you need to allocate a certain percentage of your purchases to that villages around your shop. So thereby you give an opportunity for a small timer to come up because they lack the access to market. I think government also has a role to play in creating that regulatory protection for those people. I'm not against this any of the supermarkets, but look at the damage it happens when you go and set up a supermarket in a village. How many shops will get closed? Right? How many of us look at that social impact? Right? If you have a rule or a policy to say, if you go and set up a supermarket in an area, you need to make sure that you do not disturb the existing ecosystem, and you have to have a mandatory space in your supermarket for those people who are running their shops. So if you have that kind of rules and procedures, you don't kill them. So what happens is that instead, you're killing the small timers by being in a big player. So there's a social cost of that as well. So I can talk about many things, but these are the things we have to look at, not only from the government perspective, we have to look at holistically. All of us have a role to play in building up this in our individual capacity as well as through our organizational context. So final point I want to leave with you before I stop is, don't be hesitant to become an entrepreneur. You can do a job, but still you can be an entrepreneur, because entrepreneur is a prestigious job that we heavily undermine. Being an entrepreneur is a blessing and it's a pride. Why? You are not only earning something, you are creating a job for some other people, and you are the boss, right? You have that pride. You don't have to report to anyone, and you are supporting the national economy. So we have less than 3% entrepreneurs in this country. We need more. And also, don't forget the fact that being an entrepreneur means you're trying to become a part of building the nation, right? Rather than being consumer. I have a client of mine who is maybe one of your people, let me not tell the name therefore, law student who has started a birthday party business. It's a different one. She has started recently. With the lockdown period, you can't have celebrations now. She's organizing customized birthday parties within the health guidelines for private parties. If you have anyone in your family who want to celebrate the birthday, she arranges it for them with the entire package distantly and then deliver it. So these are just one example. And I also have another team of undergraduates in a university who have started their own event management company. Right? While they are studying, they have started that. So they are doing well. So you can always think about it. So as Nilendra said, you can diversify, then sky is the limit. Thank you very much for the opportunity and hope it was useful.
Guidance. So the last question under microfinancing is for Usman. Quickly, Usman, if you could just touch base on an inspiring story or experience that you had regards to this subject, we'd be really grateful.
Yes, because my time is short, let me go through what we have achieved as a company. So Icon is a big company as far as how you see it. But 3 years back, it was a small enterprise which was made with a few inspiring individuals who got together and thought of a different idea. So our initial plan was, given that we were young, we didn't have investments. So we thought of a business that could help us out, maybe without much of an investment. And we spoke to a few people, and our own CEO and founder, Mr. Dulinda Pereira, came up with the idea of social media branding. So that's how we came into existence. So social media branding was our start, where we first started with a few companies, few small and medium enterprises, and then After a few years, we grew our team, and then we moved on to other sectors, such as digital productions, where Icon Impressions work. And we now have an application development company called Icon Labs. Plus, we also have moved on to a few other countries where we have expanded towards Dubai, and we are also operating now in Australia, which all happened in a short period of time of 3 years. So me here to talk right in front of you and give you valuable information. And I believe there are so many other companies that could be built in such a manner where many other companies that could contribute to the economy, like Mr. Chaminda told, could come into play and make Sri Lanka what it is. So I hope you had a useful session here, and because I can talk about Icon forever, but given that my time is limited, let me say that make sure you take the risk, make sure you know what you're doing, and invest your time in it, put your heart and soul into it. It will always work well. Thank you.
Thank you, Usman. Thank you very much. I hope everyone is inspired as I am right now and learned a lot. I would like to thank all the speakers committing their time. Right, now we are going to move into the quiz. It's going to take 5 minutes. It's online quiz. The link will be shared on the Zoom group and WhatsApp groups right now. I would like to also mention a little gratitude token of appreciation to Dream Team and Precious Memories for being able to provide us with a great gift opportunity. Hi guys, while we wait, I would also like to mention again about the partners, Dream Team and Precious Memories. Really want to thank them for all the support they have given us. Right, we have the name of the winner right now. Metmini Karya Karavana is the winner of the quiz. I'm sure the team will get in touch with you about your how to receive your award or gift. Right. Okay. So this is the final part of the discussion. The vote of thanks by Dulmini Gamage. So Dulmini, when you're ready.
Hi, I hope I'm clear enough.
Yes, you are.
Hi, everyone. Hope you all are doing sound and safe. Thank you so much for joining this session. It was one incredible session. It surely inspired us for entrepreneurship and investments. And I think road practice, there are a lot of road practices who are entrepreneurs. And I think you all got the best out of it. So I would like to thank the Interact Club of St. Peter's College for accepting our invitation and joining with us today. It was great working with you all. And I would like to thank Mr. Chaminda Kumarasuri, Mr. Nilendra Vithanage, and Mr. Usman Annas for taking time out of their busy schedules and sharing their valuable thoughts with us. Thank you so much, Mr. Shamita Kottegoda, for hosting this session with us. And Dream Team and Precious Memories, thank you for partnering up with us. And you guys can help them out by following them on social media platforms. Thank you, all our participants. Hope you all got the best out of it. And congratulations, Metmini, for winning this session. We are so happy for you. Last but not the least, thank you, Aparna, Nisara, and Imasha for pulling out an amazing project. You guys are the best we could ask for. With that, I would like to finish of this session. Good night, everyone. Hope you'll be doing good. And MedMini will be contacting you after a while. Stay safe.